Okay, so I think let's start. So hi everyone, and thank you for joining us this very early for today's webinar that we are presenting together with our member company Clarivate. My name is Alex, and I actually help manage the communications function within APEC Med. Together with me on the call today, we have my colleague Yasha Huang, who's our Director of Regulatory Affairs, as well as Catherine from Clarivate itself. And the three of us will be co-sharing moderator duties for today. So with three people on board, I think it should be a pretty smooth sailing webinar for this morning. For those of you who are not aware of who we are, APEC Med, or the Asia Pacific Medical Technology Association, is the only regional association within APEC that actually gives the medtech industry a concerted voice to be heard. And we were founded in 2014, and right now we have over 140 suppliers and manufacturers of medtech devices. Key associations and other stakeholders that are related to the industry here in Asia Pacific. The association's mission really is to continuously strive to improve the standards of care for patients, and how we intend to achieve this is actually to strike up innovative collaborations amongst different stakeholders within the Asia Pacific region. And within APEC itself, APEC Med, we have about 5 different functional committees, of which Yasha actually heads one of them. So the committee that she heads is our Regulatory Affairs Committee, which is also our biggest committee with over 250 regulatory professionals in it. And their aim and their goal is really to become the leading regional regulatory partner, and it really is just to improve patient access to safe, effective, and innovative medical technologies. And now, before I quickly introduce to everyone our 2 speakers for today, let's run through with you some quick housekeeping rules. So firstly, we have muted everyone who's on this call. So if you've realized that you yourself are not muted, could I just ask that you help us to mute yourself? This is just really to ensure that we don't disrupt the proceedings of the webinar later. And secondly, we will have time at the end of the call today for you to ask any questions. And there are going to be 2 ways for you to ask questions. You could either raise your hand, which is a function you'll find within the participants option at the bottom of the screen, or you could also send us a chat. Just key your question into the chat, and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. In the event that we actually run out of time and we're not able to answer all the questions, what we'll do is that we will consolidate all of the questions, share them with Teresa and Elizabeth to prepare those responses, and we'll share to the whole group that's on this call right now. Yeah. So just to wrap this up altogether, it is my pleasure to actually welcome today our 2 guest speakers from Clarivate. So Teresa Fishman as well as Elizabeth Holloway. Teresa actually leads Clarivate's clinical and regulatory consulting practice and the Center of Medicines Research. And she really is responsible for the delivery of solutions to pharma companies and medical devices companies globally. Elizabeth, is going to be her right-hand woman today, I guess. And she is a senior regulatory solutions consultant with over 17 years of experience. She provides counsel to some of the world's top pharma and medtech companies and helps them to design innovative solutions regarding their regulatory strategies and all of that. So without further ado, I think I would like to hand it over to the ladies right now.
Thank you so much. Great.
Yeah. Sorry, let me just share the screen again. Okay.
Okay, are we ready to get started, Alex?
Please do.
Okay, excellent. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Holloway, and as Alex said, I'm a senior solutions consultant at Clarivate Analytics. I'm really happy to be here today with my colleague, Teresa. Clarivate has a very strong global team of regulatory practitioners, and based on our team's experience and input, I thought we'd walk through a few areas today. We'll start with, how is the medtech industry changing? What are some trends in the adoption of artificial intelligence, or AIs, in medtech? What role does AI play in regulatory affairs, intelligence, and decision-making? What are some of the benefits of using AI in regulatory activities? Teresa will walk you through some specific use cases of how organizations we've worked with tackle the growing complexity of managing regulatory intelligence on a global scale. We'll discuss where regulatory intelligence as a process is headed as technology enables a new level of automation and augmentation. We'll take a look at some of the challenges of AI. And finally, what are some of the keys to success for better decision making? Okay, actually slide 3 now. As we all know, there has been tremendous change across the industry, ushered in by the introduction and adoption of groundbreaking digital technologies. There has been an explosion of digital health products. It's now routine to see the integration of mobile apps and wearables for patients as part of clinical trials, and the use of these tools for monitoring post-launch behavior, such as adherence, monitoring, diagnosis, and alerts. Increasing automation of internal processes, the ability to process more information more quickly, more cost-effectively, and with a greater degree of accuracy and quality. And the expansion of AI, machine learning, and natural language processing across all phases of the product development and commercialization lifecycle, and increasingly throughout the entire patient journey. When we speak to clients about AI, there is a belief that AI will allow their companies to derive previously unavailable insights and provide different ways for them to look at their data. AI is expected to positively disrupt many business areas and processes within life sciences, from smarter device candidate identification, prototyping, and the repurposing of older products to faster clinical trial recruitment, improve clinical patient education, and support to improve commercialization strategies, from that initial sales call to patient adherence, and providing ways to make quicker, better informed decisions along the path to market and beyond. Next slide, please. Taking a step back and looking at the broader picture of AI and its uses in medtech, we obviously see lots of traction for AI in clinical development and post-market surveillance, and it has traction across a number of therapeutic areas. The investment picture continues to improve. Investment in digital health continues to grow. Let's look at some numbers. Nearly $663.8 million was invested in AI for healthcare by venture capital and private equity firms and industry in 2014. That number is projected to grow exponentially to $6.6 billion in 2021. The technology market intelligence company CB Insights reported last year that interest in artificial intelligence in healthcare soared in 2019, with investors pouring $4 billion into the sector across 367 deals. That's up from nearly $2.7 billion invested in healthcare in AI in 2018 across 264 deals. 2019 also saw a record number of AI startups making exits, either through mergers and acquisitions or initial public offerings. There were 231 M&A deals and 10 IPOs across all industries. Among healthcare AI startups, we had 17 M&A deals and 2 IPOs. 59% of respondents to a recent Tufts survey plan to expand AI staff throughout 2020, in particular data scientists, computer scientists, IT specialists, and AI architects. 95% of companies surveyed by Deloitte say they plan to use machine learning to support real-world data analysis in the coming years. Next slide, please. As we well know, medical devices are not easy to design, test, or launch, and they're masked with many layers of regulations. Recent advances in AI, however, hold the potential to aid this concept to market problem. As a sign of the growing interest in AI-based healthcare solutions, more than 100 startup companies are using AI to develop biomedical products have emerged since 2014, with almost all existing large cap companies initiating AI development programs in an attempt to keep up. Let's take a moment to look at where medtech companies are engaging AI. Firstly, product discovery. AI has the potential to provide the best path forward required for the efficient analysis of complex and large data sets. Comparatively speaking, human analysis has been slow and less cost-effective. Identification of a new disease or treatment requires big data sets and lengthy timeframes when completed by humans. However, AI is changing this process significantly. Technologies built on artificial intelligence help refine and inform the medical device development process as well. It's not difficult to imagine the possibilities of AI performing complicated analytical equations, modeling, and product testing. One concept which has begun attracting attention years ago, and which technology has finally caught up to, is known as generative design. This is a type of product development in which algorithms generate multiple, dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of product designs based on user-supplied parameters, such as size, weight, raw materials used, and of course, intended functionality of the product. From there, the algorithm provides suitable candidates for testing. Next, there's product development. Many publications have discussed the challenges of digital health solutions, where digital health incorporates technology and therapeutics to provide accessible tools such as mobile health, health information technology, wearable devices, telehealth, telemedicine, and personalized medicine. These are used by healthcare providers and others to reduce inefficiencies, improve access, reduce cost, increase quality, and provide greater personalized therapeutics. Patients can use digital health technology to track and assist with managing their disease states. A spectrum of intended use and expected outcome exists due to the variety of end users of the digital solutions. This spectrum is further complicated by the increased accessibility of these products to the end user and expanding consumer base, thus introducing risks which vary in type and impact to the end user. Another extremely exciting area is robot-assisted surgery. Medtronic, a global medical device manufacturer, as you all well know, is a key player in the robot-assisted surgery market after Intuitive Surgical, which is currently the market leader with its Da Vinci surgical machines. Medtronic is investing heavily in AI-assisted surgery, largely through a partnership with Mazor Robotics, an Israeli surgical robotics company. AI has a big role to play in next-generation robotics. The first step involves augmenting the dexterity and perception capabilities of human surgeons using machine learning and AI. Surgeons of all skill levels would be able to use such a system to make better informed decisions during surgery. Additionally, AI-assisted surgery will help reduce variations across surgeries, eliminate inefficiencies during procedures, and improve patient outcomes. Combining AI, robotics, and augmented reality is another potent combination. An AR surgical tool could highlight a tumor or a feature of the body. The surgeon could make preliminary incisions and preparations, and then a robot could assist with some of the extremely fine work that makes or breaks a surgical procedure outcome. In terms of the patient experience, Philips has been developing and launching a number of AI-based connected health solutions to deliver actionable insights to improve outcomes, increase access to quality care, and reduce costs. They are positioned well within the market leadership in electronics, as well as consumer health and medical sector expertise. A few other companies focused in this arena include Analytic. This company is using deep learning and diagnostics. It has partnered with Capital Health Limited, an Australia-based diagnostic imaging services company, to utilize deep learning diagnostics and analysis of medical CT scans for lung cancer and bone fracture detection. InforVision, the China-based company, uses algorithms and computer vision methods to support lung cancer diagnosis. It's a second pair of eyes for the radiologist and can identify over 20 different cardiothoracic lesions. iCarbonX is another exciting China-based healthcare AI company, developing a platform to facilitate precision medicine, nutrition, preventative care, and disease treatment. The core focus of the company is on solutions for personalized medicine. The startup raised a Series A of $154 million in 2006. Turning our focus to regulatory, we see an area ripe with AI opportunities and initiatives. According to a December 2008 study on regulatory intelligence, over 30% of companies were investing in the following: data processing, so you're text mining, you're searching, you're monitoring, you're alerting; data synthesis, combining different data sets of information across formats; data analysis, trends, pattern, predictive analytics. Clarivate is engaged in providing consulting services to pharma and medtech companies around regulatory, and in particular, PV and post-marketing surveillance intelligence, using AI and ML, along with text mining around safety docs and literature to provide alerts and guidance around regulatory changes. Let's take a deeper dive into the application of AI in regulatory on the next slide. Within regulatory affairs, you have many of the same influencing factors which have driven interest in other parts of the industry. There is a substantial increase in the volume of data available. There are opportunities from cheaper and faster processing, and there is a drastic improvement in ability of the AI algorithms. This is coupled with the increasing complexity of the regulatory role. The number of products under clinical investigation is on the rise, along with the amount of publications from regulatory agencies. The number of new technologies in development, both drug and digital, that regulatory must actively monitor is also increasing. So there's a combination of headway being made in AI across adjacent spaces and a growing need from regulatory to automate, manage, and keep up with the influx of data. When you consider the capabilities of AI technology, it's a perfect match to address this problem. So let's take a look at the regulatory context and requirements. Our team is seeing our clients faced with a similar challenge. They spend a significant amount of time and resources monitoring and researching regulatory and the clinical landscape. And why is this? Publications from health authorities are constantly being released and revised. The FDA alone has increased 246% in the last decade. The amount of drugs, devices, and diagnostics under clinical investigation also continues to increase. Companies are using AI to monitor and manage the regulatory context and requirements. Updates on regulatory and connect and requirements sourced from your news, your press releases, laws, regulations are communicated through dashboards, which then have automatic monitoring and workflows. This leads to increasing efficiency, reduced manual monitoring, and improved information flow across the organization. If we move to looking at quality and SOP management, on its best day, AI allows the regulatory function to increase the speed, accuracy, and quality of how they execute certain functions. For example, quality assurance is tasked with continuously monitoring and updating their internal standard operating procedures in reaction to regulatory changes across dozens of markets. We have developed an AI solution with clients that can automate this process by ingesting the regulatory changes and updating the relevant SOPs. By using machine learning, we can train the solution to identify regulatory changes and then identify internal SOPs that are impacted by this regulatory change. This increases the efficiency of SOP maintenance and can improve the quality of the SOPs and underlying processes to stay aligned with regulations across the globe. This is cost-effective, quicker, and much less prone to human error. Later in the session, Teresa will be running you through some specific use cases from our clients. In terms of predictive analytics, applying analytics to predict clinical outcomes can help regulatory teams plan and prioritize future demand and actions. We are seeing many companies focusing on the following: the analysis of regulatory precedents, such as clinical trial information and design, regulatory assessment reports, competitor labels, which are then run through and supported by an AI engine. The results are being used to enable faster and better decision-making, more efficient searching, new insights, improved predictions of challenges, and regulatory approvals. The area of automation of administrative work is one most folks are familiar with. As data volumes increase, the use of text mining and NLP offer tremendous opportunities to streamline and increase efficiencies. This allows the regulatory functions to focus more on high-value activities, such as addressing any corrective action and preventative action backlogs. Finally, let's look at regulatory decision-making. As we've seen at an industry level, data from an even broader range of data sources is going to be utilized to inform decision-making across life sciences. These sources include digital biomarkers, wearables, mobile apps, electronic health records, claims data, registries, and so on. Effectively, AI tools are being used to give regulatory affairs new insights into their own decision-making functions and to help improve their decision-making processes and spot reoccurring patterns and issues. There's a great debate around whether AI will replace the human element of various tasks and responsibilities. I'm of the school of thought that AI will actually empower employees and give them tools to improve the execution of their responsibilities and give them more insights into and control over the decision-making process. AI will automate the more mundane manual tasks, but it will also enable us to act with greater certainty and at a greater pace on the data we have available to us. This will then allow us to make decisions more effectively and respond more quickly to market changes. These tools aren't replacements, they are enablers of more effective decision-making. It certainly involves change, but if a company takes the right implementation approach, they'll find their employees are far more interested in AI adoption than they might expect. In the coming years, AI-enabled regulatory intelligence will be a must-have to give companies the competitive advantage needed in the marketplace. These tools will help them track and compare regulations, learn from issues affecting their competition, and predict key approval timelines. Next slide, please. Switching our focus from life science companies to regulatory agencies and HTAs, we see a variety of ways in which AI is impacting these organizations, primarily data, process optimization, and predictive analytics. There are lots of examples of where AI and ML are improving processes and helping decision-making. One example is the extraction of data from unstructured document. Valuable information is available in unstructured text documents at health authorities, healthcare companies, and also data publicly available on the internet. This includes rather complex information regarding regulatory intelligence, but also more simple data, which can be easily evaluated once they are extracted and transferred into a database. Another example is the automation of administrative work. Health authorities and healthcare industry manage vast amounts of administrative work that robotic process automation and machine learning could help reduce. The FDA, EMA, and HTAs are engaged in a variety of projects and initiatives to reduce the effort behind manual processes of collecting, storing, and sharing data. Take, for example, the FDA's interest in AI technologies for pharmacovigilance and post-marketing surveillance. The FDA is looking to improve the efficiency and scientific validity of their analysis. To achieve that, they realize the FDA experts' time is best spent on complex tasks that have a public health impact and not combing through disparate data sets. So why AI? In short, there's increasing volume and complexity of data. In 2009, there was approximately 500,000 adverse events processed through the FDA's adverse event reporting system. In 2019, that number had jumped to 2.2 million. As a result, the FDA is using AI for signal identification and evaluation and case processing. Regulators also believe that AI provides them opportunities to utilize predictive analytics to improve decision-making based on historical patterns. For example, regulators can better predict who would and should not be investigated. A regulator needs to make choices about how to allocate and prioritize their scarce resources. With the right data and appropriate data analytics, predictions can be made about where to best place investigative resources. In our second example, regulators must make choices over which cases to prosecute. Regulators should not waste resources litigating cases they are likely to lose. Instead, they should put their resources only towards cases that they are likely to win and set precedent. Regulators can turn to the data and use machine learning to predict how a court would likely resolve a particular problem. Evaluation frameworks used by many health Technology assessments and health economic outcome research are an example. The Professional Society for Health Economics and Outcomes, IPSOR, published its top 10 trends for 2019, and AI and machine learning dominated the top of the list. First, we have the trend of using real-world data and real-world experience successfully. Regulatory decision makers continue to evaluate how to use real-world data and real-world evidence successfully. Technology and integrated electronic records have made real-world data increasingly accessible and useful for outcomes research and regulatory purposes. Although clinical trial evidence remains the gold standard for evaluating treatment efficacy, there is increasing interest and potential for converting real-world data into real-world evidence that, through careful analysis and interpretation, can be used to inform healthcare decision-making, including regulatory decisions. Mitigating the impact of patient lifestyle behaviors on disease and incidence outcomes is one of the many ways to modify lifestyle problems that can lead to disease is gamification. The use of game design elements in non-gaming contexts. Gamification in health also has broad appeal and applicability, cost-benefit efficiency, fits with everyday life, and can support well-being. For techniques such as gamification, as well as behavioral incentives, nudges, HEOR and the evaluation of real-world evidence can be useful in revealing what really works and what does not, hopefully leading to more effective approaches to modifying unhealthy behaviors and the burden of chronic diseases. Next, we have the use of big data in clinical decision-making and the growth of personalized medicine. Just as consumer goods companies use data gathered from their consumers to shape marketing campaigns, the use of big data can assist clinicians in making better healthcare decisions for their patients. Next, we have digital therapies and software. With the introduction of digital therapies and software, AI and ML are changing the very nature of what regulatory agencies have to approve and review. Take, for example, Reset-O. It's the first FDA-cleared prescription digital therapeutic, PDT, for patients with opioid use disorder. Or a recent FDA paper on artificial intelligence and machine learning and software as a medical device. On April 2nd, 2019, the FDA published a discussion paper that described the FDA's foundation for a potential approach to pre-market review for artificial intelligence and machine learning-driven software modifications. In this approach, the FDA would expect a commitment from a manufacturer on transparency and real-world performance monitoring for artificial intelligence and machine learning-based software as a medical device, as well as periodic updates to the FDA on what changes were implemented as part of the approved pre-specifications and the algorithm change protocol. The proposed regulatory framework could enable the FDA and manufacturers to evaluate and monitor a software product from its pre-market development to post-market performance. This potential framework allows for the FDA's regulatory oversight to embrace the iterative improvement power of artificial intelligence and machine learning-based software as a medical device while assuring patient safety. Next slide, please. The graphic you're looking at is from Medical Futurist and details the AI algorithms that have been approved by the FDA. There has been a swift uptake in volume over the last 5 years. In 2014, only AliveCore's algorithm for the detection of atrial fibrillation was approved. 2 years later, the FDA found further 4 solutions ready for clinical use, while in 2007, 6 new algorithms were approved by US regulators. This exponential growth just accelerated when the FDA endorsed 23 algorithms for use in medicine. As the first approvals in 2019 also show, we do not expect this trend to slow down. On the contrary, we'll most likely see dozens of new medical AI solutions on the market. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Teresa, for some real-world examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next slide, please. So there are many key benefits of AI in regulatory activities, but today we'll focus on 3 of them: simplifying regulatory compliance processes, by automating manual tasks, enabling better decision-making by making regulatory compliance's process smarter, and preparing for future regulations in the present. In the coming slides, we'll walk through a couple of case studies from your pharmaceutical peers to better elucidate these activities. In addition, we'll discuss the trends we see your pharmaceutical peers are engaging in, and these fall into 4 key categories. The first is regulatory submissions, which we won't discuss today as this will be part of another webinar at a future date. The second is post-marketing surveillance. The third is SOP monitoring and maintenance. And lastly, predictive analytics on timing of future regulatory regulations. Next slide, please. For post-market surveillance, the use of AI for literature searching is used to expedite the reporting of adverse events. Natural language processing and machine learning has transformative potentials as well. Inputting search terms into scholarly literature search engines or citation databases is both time-consuming and tedious. Searches typically return enormous numbers of the results, and many of the papers retrieved turn out to be less relevant or less replicable than what the companies need. New algorithms rely on innovations in data mining, computer visions, and natural language processing to do more than merely search the study's abstract for keywords. Instead, AI-powered tools are able to rank findings according to their relevance, discern how frequently a paper has been cited, and display a visual representation of the relationships between studies. These projects rely on semantic search techniques, which try to understand searchers' intentions and the meanings of the terms they use in order to return the most meaningful results. By one estimate, new papers are published worldwide at a rate of 1 million each year. That's 1 every 30 seconds. It is practically impossible for researchers to keep up, even their own narrow disciplines. If you consider this as a single fact in time, in today's market, in today's need for post-market surveillance, you cannot not use an AI tool for your post-market surveillance requirements. With the prediction of AEs, meaning having the ability to look across all available data to identify and even predict potential adverse events, more than just increasing the efficiency by employing artificial intelligence and machine learning, but also to detect patterns across multiple patients that would take humans a lot longer to recognize. Then there's big data. 2 key elements of big data. 1, it grows year over year. And 2, successful automation of the data enhances the ability to provide safer technologies. How do we take big data, transform that into personalized medicine? By closing the gap and transforming product vigilance output to deliver more personalized care through advanced analytic techniques. We can better understand the benefit-risk ratio of a product and how it may impact the specific profile of an individual receiving treatment. Designing devices to integrate machine learning and predictive analytics to pave the way for smart devices and medical machinery that could diagnose and interpret results. Let's not forget the fastest growing segment of big data, social media. Social media listening using rule-based machine learning for sites like Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter are on the rise as well and can be an effective and scalable solution, but still needs human SME review. Next slide. Here's a use case from one of your pharma peers in pharmacovigilance. By the revenue, you can see this is one of the top pharma companies. They utilize the use of AI for literature search to expedite the reporting of adverse reactions, employing both natural language processing and machine learning. They also incorporate the use of big data and AI to diagnose and interpret results. However, they still have gaps that are not being addressed in regards to pharmacovigilance regulations. And they're looking for a way to incorporate technology and machine learning into their workflows. The issue they face is not uncommon. Like many companies that are on the call today, they operate in silos. So there's duplication of work in relation to sourcing local and regional regulations and trying to maintain compliance to those regulations. The main company or the headquarters can't effectively track local compliance to any new regulations because they are oftentimes unaware when new regulations are published or are made aware of these new regulations much later when they feel they should be made aware. Next slide. So what solution best fit their need? This company was really looking for an uncomplicated solution and a way to disseminate information across the different stakeholders to ensure compliance to new regulations. They needed and wanted a web-based tool that would allow users across the globe access to a single site, raw local reference documents, also referring to those as regulations, notifications, laws, directives, etc., where all the reference documents could be accumulated into one location, allow local and corporate members to notify other members of the team of a new regulation, set alerts as to the importance of the new regulation, create an impact analysis of the new regulation, provide reporting as to the incorporation of the regulation into their SOPs, or to flag for possible response to health authority, and lastly, for knowledge sharing. Some specific tasks they were looking for: the assignment of alerts to individual users for action, alert response status monitoring and reporting, and performance reports by users. The solution provided the company 5 key components. The first, as their main issue focused on being compliant with new regulations published locally, the solution now published all local reference documents into one system. Their second criteria was focused on prioritizing new regulations. A color-coded system was used to categorize new documents as they were published into the system. A very simple schematic of red being actionable regulations within 30 days, orange or amber, 31 to 60 days, yellow, 61 to 90 days, and green for information only or 90 days and greater. Their third focus was to eliminate the noise and only see documents for pharmacovigilance. They did not want to see any documents related to clinical trial or manufacturing or marketing and commercialization. They wanted just pharmacovigilance. Their fourth area of focus, they wanted to be able to provide an impact assessment for each document that was pushed into the system. This would allow them to understand the importance of the document and the implications to internal processes or SOPs. The fifth area, they wanted an administrator to be able to assign a document to a team member, for the team member to review and address the impact assessment and color code the document and track how long this process takes. As you can imagine, the implications for not reviewing in a timely manner can have significant impact to a company when audited. In total, the solution provided a clear and concise process for regulatory document review, and it expedited documents by priority so the company could make strategic business decisions in a timely manner. This reduced their overall risk and reduced the man hours that had been wasted by multiple people, saving the company time, as well as money in utilizing resources in higher profile projects. Next slide. SOP management. The second trend we see is in the area of SOP management and companies trying to remain compliant in an ever-changing regulatory landscape. Prior to the COVID pandemic, in which time 80 of the largest countries in the world have produced more than 1,200 new regulatory documents since the end of December alone. This was a daunting task prior to COVID. And of itself anyway, can you now imagine what it is today? The need for artificial intelligence solution to speed up and improve SOP compliance to global regulatory changes is more of a requirement today than a year ago. A solution that continuously monitors new regulations, laws, directives, notices, etc., from national regulatory authorities worldwide so that companies can ensure compliance is now necessary. Using AI tools like natural language processing and machine learning, SOP owners are made aware of new regulations and can assess the impact of the regulations on their SOPs, whether they need to update the SOP and then communicate those changes up and down the chain, as well as to local affiliates. Next slide. And our next case study, this again is another top 10 pharma, this time within the manufacturing group. Similar to the previous case, the company also operates in silos and needed a way to communicate when new regulations are published and needed a way to communicate that to the SOP owners around the globe. Their current process, believe it or not, is an Excel spreadsheet and a SharePoint disaster waiting to happen. As they have multiple owners of the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet has links to SharePoint and links to sources and multiple layers, it is incredibly cumbersome, and quite frankly, they know they can no longer continue as a global company in this manner. They have a large and complex DQMS system and needed a tool that would be system agnostic, but would still provide them access to the regulations. So there are several different ways to do the SOP matcher. On your screen is one way. From the left, the documents are pulled from both the company and the reference document repository. The documents are sent through a machine learning model, then a vectorization of the document occurs. And by vectorization, I mean transforming words into numerical representations. Then these are sent through the SOP matcher and pushed through to a quality management system for review and impact assessment. Next slide. The solution that was developed needed global access for SOP owners, allowed corporate to know who was assigned a regulation, and when that regulation needed to be incorporated into an SOP. As their current Excel-based solution was complicated, they wanted a solution that was easily maneuverable. Most importantly, they wanted a solution that would ensure compliance to local regulations and policy and allow for requirements tracing. The expected return on investment looked at 3 key areas. The first, impact assessment speed and efficiency. Does the system compare to existing process of distribution of potential regulatory change to SOP owners? How much time is saved on the impact assessment and in cross-referencing potential impacted SOPs? The second ROI, impact assessment quality. The system needs to eliminate the noise in the process. The system needs to improve the quality of the impact assessment. The system needs to use automation to improve the quality and systemic process of impact assessment. The third ROI, risk avoidance. Can the system reduce risk in systematic reviews of SOPs to identify missed requirements on a retrospective basis? Can the system reduce risk of missing changing regulatory requirements on a prospective basis? Can the system increase compliance readiness before regulations come into enforcement? The answer to all 3 above ROIs was yes. The system allows the user to quickly determine both the impact assessment and the cross-referencing of potentially impacted SOPs. Using AI and machine learning, eliminates the noise of regulatory documents that are not within scope and improves the quality of the data feed, which improves the quality of the impact assessment. The system does provide risk reduction by setting up a customizable risk threshold to assume more or less risk based on the user requirements. Next slide, please. As Elizabeth described previously, the use of predictive analytics can be used by regulators by providing them opportunities to utilize predictive analytics to improve decision-making based on historical patterns. A recent trend we have seen in this is to take the same logic and apply to historical patterns of regulatory guidelines, to predict future changes in regulatory requirements, to better plan regulatory strategy that will or may have significant impact to a company. By looking at the historical timeline of regulations, from the first time a topic was mentioned at a committee meeting or at a conference to the first draft of the guideline, and then the final guidance, we may be able to identify key timelines to anticipate how to be prepared when the final guidance comes along. There are several large pharma working on this exact scenario. Next slide. A few minutes ago, I opened with the benefits of AI in regulatory activities, simplifying the regulatory compliance process by automating manual tasks. In the first trend, we discussed post-market surveillance and how using machine learning and natural language processing has successfully bridged the gap from manual to automation, and that we need to engage now in automating these tasks as the data pool will only continue to grow. The second, enabling better decision-making by making regulatory compliance processes smarter. Our second trend on SOP management is on breaking communication silos and working smarter with tools that allow efficient compliance processes, resulting in time, money, and resource savings. Lastly, prepare for future regulations in the present. Our last trend in predictive analytics is looking to better prepare your organization for future growth by anticipating new regulatory guidances now. Next slide. So what are some of the key successes for using AI to make better decisions in regulatory? Number one is data. Build strong data integration and analytics capabilities to combine structured raw data with unstructured, personalized, and interpreted data from different sources, including internal and external data sources, clinical trials, devices, and real-world evidence. Second is operating model. Companies should evolve their innovative operating model, breaking functional silos to enable communication and collaboration within the global regulatory teams and others in the larger ecosystem. Skills. It's not as simple as adding data scientists. Everyone in the organization, from researchers to managers, will have to improve technology skills and adopt a data-driven mindset, especially in the medical device development, where statistical modeling has been part of the capability set for decades. We've seen successful clients actively drive a change agenda that clearly distinguishes between biostatistics and the design of machine learning algorithms. Culture. Addressing the cultural change required with the introduction of AI is critical to success. As you can imagine, change management is a huge part of getting it right. In the AI-assisted model of the future, leaders and employers who understand and utilize AI in the arena will become the experts in the future. Organizations that adapt their culture to take advantage of the new will fare better than those that remain in the analog mode. Number 5, decision-making. Decision-making for medical device manufacturers and regulatory agencies is being impacted by technology at an ever-increasing rate, and it will not slow down anytime soon. Advancements in technology are shaping the what and the how in the development of regulations and new technologies. AI and machine learning capabilities are creating new decision points. What data should we use? What capabilities should we build? What does the clinical trial look like? What digital partners should we engage with? What does regulating software mean? As we all know, digital tends to flatten organizations, and decision-making of data is available real-time across all levels of the organization. This, coupled with the fact there are a host of new inputs into our decision-making and new areas requiring decisions, like digital therapies or software or digital partners. There's great opportunity to assess and learn about regulatory decision rationale so we can improve future regulatory decision-making. Next slide. Thank you. We'll open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Teresa, for the wonderful presentations. So now we're opening up for questions. Any queries from the audience, please use the chat box at the bottom to send through your questions, or you can simply raise your hand. So I think personally, while we're waiting for the questions coming in, I will just make my comment from my observations. I think this is really perfect timing for us to discuss about this question, as we can see the trends globally, but particularly in the very fragmented Asia-Pacific region. We see the explosion of new regulations and guidance and documents in the medical device space. So actually, to address these challenges and also to meet the demands of the members, that we, APEC Med, are producing a monthly regulatory intelligence newsletter together with Clarivate as our knowledge partner to help our members to always stay tuned on all these latest challenge and changes in the regulations. I think so far this intelligence newsletter has been very well received. However, we see that's not enough for our companies to always stay compliant and also to achieve efficiency in this internal management processes, because there is this trend in the explosion of the new regulations, and also because of the upcoming digital innovations in the product side, that from a compliance process that we also need to update and upgrade our tools to make our process more efficient and more effective. So it's also very interesting that even during my meetings with the regulators, I see they are also very interested in adopting and assessing these kind of tools to help with their workload. So imagine that even from the government authorities, they are looking at how to utilize this kind of AI-enabled tools to improve their efficiencies, and then to cope with these millions of units of the information that they need to look into, and also to cultivate these literatures and these clinical evidences. And then as the industry, I think we also need to keep up with this trend and really look into these tools and how can we benefit based on the company's resources and the company's needs. So we will have a couple of minutes for the questions. So please feel free to type your questions in the chat box. And also we will be sending out a short survey immediately after this webinar. So you can always ask more detailed questions to our experts and the panelists if you have any queries about any solutions or the trends in this space. So let's see if we have any questions coming in. Okay, I think I see some questions. I think there is one from Sandeep. I'm not sure whether panelists can read. I will read it. So please, can you share your experience on use of AI to improve processes, improving selection of digital biomarkers and linkages of therapeutics and clinical care pathways and outcomes?
I can take that. This is Teresa. So we haven't within the regulatory team have not had that, but our discovery and translational science team uses this and has an AI process they've done for a large pharma company doing exactly this, the selection of the digital biomarkers and linking that back to the pathways. And they've looked at genomics data in addition to it when they're doing their digital biomarker. We haven't done it on our side within the regulatory space, but our Discovery and Translational Sciences group has been doing that.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. I see whether we have more questions coming in. You can type your questions in the chat box or simply raise your hand and we will unmute you.
So the systems that we have, I see George's question. So the systems that we have, yes, they integrate with in-house systems. We try to build systems that are system agnostic. They could sit on top of any type of internal system or any type of like a Viva Vault or an Oracle system. They're fairly agnostic. And that's kind of the beauty of what we've been able to do, because everybody has a DQMS or a RIM system. And so they sit on top of those and they can communicate and talk in between the two systems.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. We have another question from Edward Wu. He's asking, is the AI tool adaptable to different languages to search for different regulators' websites for notification?
So it is. We have what we've worked on today. It's adaptable to any language. It's just a training module that has to do. Right now we can do German, French, Italian, obviously English. We haven't broken into the APEC languages yet, but the system can do that. We just has to be taught. But we haven't had a request to do that for the APEC languages yet.
Yeah, we see another question. Which HA in APEC has officially embraced AI in their work and evaluation model, if we know?
Elizabeth, that falls to you, Elizabeth.
Yep. So I would say the two more advanced would be China and Japan. I don't know about Singapore, but that is something we can go back and see with our CIRS group. I think they would probably be best poised to to give a definitive answer.
Yeah, I'm aware of some discussions ongoing with China for sure. In Singapore, we actually also discussed this with them. I think HSA is interested. I'm not sure whether they have officially launched this with any partners yet, but I think, yeah, I mean, from the solution provider side, I think there are some discussion ongoing. Yeah, and we have an additional question to build on the first one. What is the plan for APEC languages, especially for Chinese and Japanese? These are the biggest markets for a lot of companies.
Yeah, so we are deploying a system for a Japanese company, pharma company. So that one is imminent. The timeline for that one is imminent. It just hasn't been deployed yet. And the Chinese, they are also interested in the Chinese market. So I would assume that would be our next timeline. I can circle back and get a solid answer on the timeline for those.
Yeah, if I may ask Elizabeth and Teresa one question from my side. I'm just curious about what is the validation standard for this kind of systems that you developed?
So it's a good question. So some of the systems that the SOP matcher, and the first one we did, which was the tool, we call it Clarita. It's just an internal name we're calling it, our Clarita tool, that allows the regulatory documents in and out. That tool will be validated in April, right? And I'm sorry, in September. Currently, because we're pulling in data from Cortalis and it's all public domain data, it doesn't need to be a validated system, but we are starting to marry it with internal systems, which is why we're pushing for a validation process for it. The SOP matcher, because it sits on top of that it'll talk to a quality management system, the database tool itself is a validated system. And we have all the validation requirements for that.
Thank you, Teresa. So we realize that we're approaching the end of the webinar, but we definitely see the interest from the audience that you'd have more questions. So our panelists are very kind. They agreed to stay on, you know, even after we close this webinar for another 5 to 10 minutes. So they will still be able to address your questions in the chat box. So please just keep sending through your questions. And even if we couldn't address it now, please send your questions via the survey that we will be publishing soon. And also, I think before I close, I would like to just thank Teresa and Elizabeth for your wonderful presentations. And also I want to thank Catherine and Dennis for making this happen. And we know that today we address some of the internal strategies and to how to optimize your regulatory compliance procedures and resources in-house. But then also later this month, on the 25th of June, we'll be organizing another webinar looking at external policy environment. So we will have a how to regulate AI-based medical devices webinar at the end of this month. So we will look forward to that one as well. So thank you again, Teresa and Elizabeth. And we will leave this platform open for another few minutes. Thank you all and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yasha. Thank you all.